For 65 years, ZIZ Radio has told stories long before streaming and digital were common buzzwords. The technology was simple by today's standards, but the mission was clear: connect voices to a community in real time. Leading the way were dedicated employees and administrators who paired ingenuity with technology to carry out their mission to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
My name is Clement Juni Liebert.
My name is Leslie Morton, now known as Sugar Bowl.
Theophilus Emmanuel Clark.
My name is Jasmine Clark Thomas.
I'm Golden Keynes. I started working at ZIZ in 1968.
Well, I started working at ZIZ when I graduated from high school in 1968, I think it was, for a short while.
I started working at ZIZ in 1976.
I began on the 1st of March in 1991.
I remember the interview so vividly where Miss Manchester asked me which area I want to go in, whether radio or TV. So I was like, is that easy? I said radio and went over and was trained under Mr. Bradley to do bulletin board and that kind of stuff. That was 1995, ending of 1995.
Like I said, started in 1968. By 1975, I was appointed to act as the general manager.
In the early years, radio was physical. Sound lived on tape, and analog machinery brought the station to life.
Well, the technology there was really the devices, the turntable, the tape recorders, you know, a cassette machine, the microphone, and it was just on the first day an introduction to the setup.
The cassette deck was very much in play with the news, but we had what we call reel-to-reel tapes on some big machines. We were running from one side to the next, and that is what we played speeches from, if you recorded them. If you recorded songs, they would go into that because they had a better reproduction than the cassette.
And when I got here, it was records, 45s and LPs and tape recorders and, you know, real tape most of the time. And then things started to change. When we get into the 80s, we start moving with the technology.
I met turntables, reel tapes, cart machines. That's what I met when I came.
When I got there, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, the reel-to-reel is what got me. Like, it was, wow, how do you get sound out of this? You know, it's like I had a cassette Walkman at the time, so I know of a cassette, but it looked like a cassette opened. So it always amazed me looking at it and how it was done. Yeah.
Back then, commercials used to be on reel tape. Music used to be on reel tape. The news on reel tape. And sometimes music used to be on cassette. So we had cassette players and everything back then.
Cassette deck, I had a big problem with it because it was just cumbersome to me.
There were cats, we call them cats, a little machine, the cat. I hope you'll get to see one. We put it in the player and we just press play and whatever on it, whether it's a commercial or a jingle or whatever it is, bring it up on the air. There was cat, yeah, there was cat.
And what we call then the console, the board, which really would be the levers that controlled every item. So one had to understand the panel and which particular fader, we call them pots in the days, which pot to open to activate which bit of equipment.
New employees had no hands-on experience at first. They had to earn the privilege of using the technology of the day.
On the first day, yes, I got to use the microphone because on the first day I had a do at the request program, which was really just calling out the request for whom and from whom and which song you're going to play on that first day.
Oh, the very first day there was no technology. You just had to go in a room and read all bulletin board items to get so you could not sound like you're reading. You know, you're reading, but you don't want to sound like, and the boy ran away. No, you had to sound conversational.
Mr. Khan husband told us that we had to learn by watching. And so we watched the guys go through their duties, the technical guys, the broadcast guys, and then there was a learning period. It didn't put us straight on the air. And so with that in mind, my first day was just a learning and growth experience.
The first day, I was the attendant. I used to just carry out mails and all kind of stuff from ZIZ to government headquarters and all over. That was my duty. But then, when Miss Claudette Manchester was the manager then, that's back in about 85 or so, somewhere 87, can't remember the date, you know, I was transferred from that position to a radio announcer.
Besides, you had to go to the office and speak with the manager. And then I was, they brought me around to introduce me to the different offices, personnel. And then after that I was, I saw the machines and everything, but I did not get to touch anything or anything like that.
Didn't touch any equipment for quite a while. We just basically were just babysitting the studios until somebody got sick or somebody went on vacation. Then you got a little more involved in terms of hands-on stuff.
Training to use the technology was mainly done in-house.
You'd have somebody was put with me for my first shifts to show me how to do what, how to cue up a record, how to cue up the tape recorders, and how to activate each of those stuff. And so you worked under the tutelage of a more experienced announcer who had been there at the time. But after a very short while, the shortest while, you're on your own. And so you're thrown into the deep and you just have to swim.
We came up to the studio. Mr. Alban would line up the people who were new and say, well, he would get Sir Joseph to tell us exactly what they were for and how to take care of them, how to preserve them, how to interact with them. Then we had Wilsey White and Lorena Maynard, who would also give us some coaching on what to say, the do's and don'ts of broadcasting.
When we came in, there was no way we would have been able to touch equipment or anything like that, right? We had to train. So I had to sit behind Theo Clark, Via Galloway, Alva Bradley, Conce Edwards, the late Conce Edwards, Cheryl Ward. I had to sit behind them and just watch them work, right? And then after that, I got to sit on the set with the console. And so I had to work with the turntables first.
The technicians took care of that, and some of the other DJs who were here to show us how to operate the machines, the cart machine, the wheel machine, how to turn them up, and the turntables and everything. So all that was in place.
You get, this is how it's done, and then you gotta go with it from there. Would you believe it? I got my actual first formal training, training about radio, the do's and the don'ts. 4 years after being at ZIZ, I got the opportunity to go to Jamaica, carry Mac course. That was eye-opening. I realized we were doing a lot of things incorrectly at the radio station at the time, and then that really shifted my idea of what radio broadcasting was about. That's probably 2000, around 2099, somewhere around there.
That preliminary training that I had here in relation to what was available, I did that until very shortly after I was introduced to real formal training. That's when I went off to the BBC College, the BBC School of Broadcasting. here in broadcasting studies.
Learning the technology was one thing. When putting it into practice, the broadcasters were tasked with effectively using multiple pieces of equipment to seamlessly produce radio programming.
It was pretty hectic, and it demanded a lot of concentration because you were kept pretty busy. But any shift that you had, what it looked like, that shift began the day before. Because at no time anybody would go to the studio to do a shift unless he had prepared.
Throughout the shift, it would have been the CAT machines, which would have been bringing like jingles, and they were big, huge pieces of equipment, you know. So I'll use the CAT machines, I use the turntables, right? And then we had the reel-to-reel as well, or the stereograph that I learned to use as well. And that in itself was another challenge.
My first shift started in the night. That's when Lord Black was either away on vacation or he got sick. So I did the night shift. And I had records. I had to go in the library to pull out the records. Then, of course, I told you about the reel-to-reel. Oh, I didn't even mention the carts. There were some carts that you push in and you press the button and you get jingles. Some of them have commercials. All that was just amazing to me.
My buddy was Arthur Gray, and he was technically inclined. He was the one who used to go out and do outside broadcasts and so on. So he would say, look, it's not only just to go in and speak on the air, you have to know about the technology, you have to learn to splice, you have to learn to cut, so in case I don't come, you do it. You understand? So I learned the technology by interacting with somebody that was their job, basically. And it went rather well, and so I was able to prepare a full broadcast by having my script and having the technology there to work alongside with what I was planning to do that day.
A typical day, you use a reel tape, the cassette player, the turntables. Well, you know the microphone going to be there, and you use the head as well.
Because you are on your own, you have one record queued up and ready to go, and maybe a second because there are only two turntables. By the time you play the first record, you're into your PSAs or your commercials. And these were then on a reel tape. And one commercial might be in the early part of the tape, the commercial that follows in the lower part of the tape. And so that when you play one commercial, you might introduce a song to enable it to go for another commercial and play the next song. And between playing the commercial, it gives you a chance to prepare the next song. And while the song is going, you use the time while the song is being played. And because we had two tape recorders, you can play two commercials. And so after you begin to become very skilled.
In the early years of ZIZ, the equipment felt new and cutting edge. But as time rolled on, that same technology began to feel cumbersome and at times inefficient.
For me, everything was cutting edge. It was all very new to me. And so there was no comparison. I was entering a new world. And so this is cutting edge. Everything is cutting edge.
The cutting edge thing had to be the card machine because I'm accustomed to cassette player, and yeah, so the card machine, like where you push the like bam, like how is that, you know, how is that making a noise? Until one of them broke and I said, oh, there's a tape in there. So I was wondering how we making this sound all the time, but yeah. So I wouldn't say anything there was cutting edge for me.
It just felt like a lot of work, and you could make mistakes along the way because the technology was not a competent technology as today's technology. And so there were mistakes that were made, tapes would bust up and you had to go and get new tapes to start over, and what you did was wasted because you couldn't retrieve it.
Only since we start getting the CDs and all kind of thing, you know, you start to feel different. And back in those days, you know, you had to turn this and turn that on the console, but now you push up there and you push up here and so on, and you know. So when that started to get in place, you know, you feel different. You feel different.
Especially the turntables. That was what everybody was using, the DJs, you know, outside, in the field, like when you go to parties and so it was turntables. So it was considered that part.
Due to the unpredictable nature of the aging technology, some of the broadcasters took extra steps to prepare for a case of equipment failure.
ZIZ was always, fledgling and struggling, and we would have equipment. They would all give trouble. When they break down, you're still live and carrying your program. It happened, on a regular basis, but ZIZ was growing. It took a lot of money to keep the station going. And so we did very well. We had very good engineers that kept the repairs going. But in terms of reliability, things break down. They all break down from time to time.
You could splice the tape and then try to put it back together and seal it up and so on, but it didn't always work. And inevitably, sometimes it would bust again in the same spot. And so there were problems with the technology. But it was part of the evolution of what we do today, so it served its purpose.
When the cassette machine is not playing, when it's not playing, it's not working properly. It could be frustrating. It was frustrating.
We worked with two-wheel tapes as well, two-wheel tape machines, right? They were in the console itself. And you would have to know how to get one off and put on the other one. So it was like a left and right hand kind of thing. You had to always be moving to put them on. And sometimes you find like one might drop and roll. You had to bring it back and roll it back in to get it back on to play the advertisement, because at that time, ZIZ was the #1 station. No other station was there, right? So we had ads upon ads to play.
Actually, once I learned how to put on the wheel-to-wheel in such a fast time, I felt so comfortable. So there was never any frustration. You always have to make sure you have something next. When you don't, then you could get yourself in problems for dead ear and nothing on the ear. So you always, because you'll have a record playing and the needle just goes, like the needle just rub out, that's enough. Like you have to get a brand new needle, so you just right on the ear, you'll get all of that. So if you don't have anything to play, Mr. Bradley drilled that. He made it sound as though if nothing is on the ear, the world will come to an end. So we had to make sure that we are properly prepared when we get in that studio for whatever shift we had.
Dead ear is a big thing on the ear. When you have these instances, and it don't be long. Sometimes it's just 5 seconds, but people are already calling, what happened to the station? We're not hearing y'all. And it's just a little bit of dead ear. So you always had to be able to maneuver.
And as time wore on, these failures, some of them on air, proved to be frustrating for the broadcasters.
I told you about the record needle. That has happened to me where I thought it was my fault because I put it on, you gotta close your eye and get it to the track that you want, and then so I think it's something I did, but then later Mr. Bradley would have explained to me that the needle is no longer good. There was me playing a cassette and it just busts on the ear, so had to scrabble to find something. That's where the cat machines come in so quick, press it.
When I was there just months, in my first year, the then general manager decided to select me to go to the cenotaph to cover the ceremony at the cenotaph on Remembrance Day. Never did it before, and all I've got is a tape recorder. Began doing it, and the tape recorder just keep stopping and cutting out. By the time I got back to the studio, I had bits and pieces of when I would stop it and whatnot.
We used to work with a young man who has passed now, peace be upon him, the late Conce Edwards. And I could remember that he used to try and put on stuff like songs or programs and go downtown to look dinner or look at lunch or buy a drink or something. And several times, especially say like with the vinyl, they would stick in a rut, in a groove. And so you hear tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. And then that brought the boss up, because he wanted to know what was going on. And so that happened with Conce a couple of times.
Sometimes when we had to do church service and we had to do it by telephone, sometimes he drops out. Sometimes he doesn't work at all. So it could be frustrating.
You know, sometimes cassettes though, they get eaten. You're playing them and then you just hear things like that. And you can't get it out. So you have to go to something else. Like we had a little recorder that we would put there, and sometimes you had to go to that, we had to plug it up in time to get it on the air.
In the days of analog technology, when it came to on-air performance, there was little room for spontaneity, as every element of the broadcast had to be collected and arranged beforehand.
Before my shift, I'll have to go in the library and pick out my records that I'm going to use today, go pick out the cassettes that I'm going to use. So I would have a lot of stuff. I'll have like tons of record on one side, cassettes piled up there on another side, all the ads, the reel-to-reel setup that's on my shift, because them tell you have to have a log so you know which ad's playing when. So I have to have all the ads them, prepare all of that. So when my shift starts, I know I have to run Jason ad at 3, this ad at 4, and so on. So preparation, but it was just a lot. It was just a lot of stuff you would have to have when your shift starts.
In my day, once you're going on radio, you ought to have gone prepared. And there are a lot of things that we had to do scripted, actually. You had to prepare your music in advance. You had to select your music in advance and to get it approved that that is the right music and the mood. And there are certain programs that we did. You had to write the script ahead of time.
You couldn't be spontaneous with it or create anything because it was a fixed technology to set in stone. It's either do it or you don't do it. You either get it right or you get it wrong. With today's technology, you can be more creative, more outgoing. It allows you that flexibility. But the old technology with the vinyl and the tapes and the cassette decks and so on, thank God they're no longer around.
I remember taking some of the reel-to-reel stuff, the ads, playing them so we could actually transfer them to the computer. And it was like so easy. No more, no more. Listen, if you ever have 5 seconds left on one ad and the reel-to-reel is in the box, the panic mode you would be in because you don't want any dead air. You see 5, 4, you know, it's like you just score a goal when you get that on. But when you get a computer, it's just click, pull down, and everybody just run right after the other. That was amazing to do.
However, on the production side, failed or insufficient equipment often forced broadcasters to be creative to complete tasks.
I could remember that one day Sugar Bowl and I was doing a commercial, and boy, I had to make a different kind of sound because what we wanted to do, and and to sitting down in a chair using one mic, it is not to say, well, I have my own mics, I listen to him, and when he finishes, I just do my thing. But, those were the days. And you had to be creative to get what you want done and do it properly.
Mr. Keynes explained how he managed to salvage that incomplete recording of the Remembrance Day ceremony in 1968.
The manager at the time, he would have a problem, and I had a difficulty. And so I had to get back to the studio, away from the ceremony, and do the program in the studio. In other words, those parts that were recorded, and fill in the missing blanks and fill in the gaps. I got assistance from my technical colleagues because I couldn't even edit. because we needed to fox the bus and I needed to provide a program. And when I put the bits and pieces in and played it back, the atmosphere was different because one was in studio and the other one was outside. But not to be outdone, we all agreed, go outside, selected a place where the wind blew almost equal to the way it did at the cenotaph. I recreated the story, just recreated the story.
And while the technology of the day allowed the station to serve its purpose, it was the creativity and personalities of the on-air talent that gave the station its signature sound.
I think the silence of ZIZ came about because of the talent that ZIZ was fortunate to husband in the early stages. People came with different talents, and it is that talent that got developed and we got reflected in the development of programs.
After they're doing his 11:15 record roundup, you had Ravina coming in with the children's program, you had the Big Jail in the afternoon with Soul Serenade, Golden Canes with Musica Latina, and so on. The night you had, I forget who was in the Concert Woods at night with the Kaiso, local Kaiso, homegrown music. So ZIZ had a distinctive sound which was hard to duplicate because it was a collection, a cohesion of music and different talents coming together to express, give it that distinctive ZIZ sound.
A core principle of ZIZ over the years has been connecting with the audience, and in the early years, radio served as a one-way mode of communication. As time progressed, the channels for listeners to contact the station became faster and more effective.
Back in the day, you could not connect to the audience because the audience couldn't reach you. This was the days when nobody had telephones. I didn't even imagine the possibility of a cell phone. The fact that you didn't have telephone access, everybody would want, for instance, to send greetings and as we call it, send a request. And we had to develop a request program. And the way it was built up is that cards were printed, which were request cards, and they were distributed. They were available at post offices and elsewhere. But you go to the post office and collect a number of request cards because you need to communicate with the station to indicate the desire to send a request for Jason coming from whoever. And the people will get their request cards and write up the request cards, put a stamp on it, and post it.
Well, I didn't come in the time when they would send the request down to post the request in. I came after that, but you would have call-ins, persons would call, and they'll call the office, send in the request, or they would call us on air, and sometimes you would also put them on air for them to, say who they're saying hi to, etc.
I remember somebody would call and say, I want to hear Gypsy, the sinking ship. I have to go in, look on the G, find Gypsy, and find which one got on the sinking ship. Now, Gypsy, sinking ship. Well, that was crazy. It's like no more waiting long for your song. You say you want to hear that song, once it's already been transferred as an MP3, the ease at which you could find that song, even now playing in the club. People come up to me and I like to hear this song and that song. If it fits into what I'm playing now, you find it in seconds, put it on, and it's everybody happy.
Throughout the course of its history, ZIZ has always used a combination of ingenuity and the available technology of the day to create new and sometimes groundbreaking programming. Mr. Keynes recounts one such event involving live church services.
Live broadcasts from the churches back then could have only come from what we call the main churches. Wesley Methodist, to be exact, St. George's Anglican, Zion Moravian, and the Church of the Immaculate Conception, the Catholic Church. And every Sunday there was a live service. First Sunday, second Sunday, 4 Sundays, 4 churches. And when there was a 5th Sunday, there was a neutral church, which was the Salvation Army. Services could only come from these 4 churches, And this is Good Friday. And how do you record a service for Good Friday? We wanted the service, and I wanted it live. And the engineers explained to me that what was entailed is that we will have to use a telephone line, a regular telephone, do the technical things, because the signal goes to the telephone exchange, which was in the building where the electricity department is now on Central Street. And from there up to ZIZ, that's where all the signals would, that was the channel. And what happened is that Pastor Connor, Bishop Connor, he had a telephone in his house across the street from the church, across the street. And he was willing to sacrifice the use of his telephone as the bishop for the duration of the service. But guess what? It had to be hooked up on Thursday because the telephone department don't work on Good Friday, they're holidays. And so we had to hook up his phone and put the connections in place on the Thursday afternoon to run a cord across the street to the church. And I had to tell the good bishop, you're not getting your telephone back. You can't get your telephone back until after the holiday. He said, no problem.
Over the years, the introduction of digital technology was seen as a boost to the workflow of ZIZ Radio.
CDs coming on board. CDs were more, compliant, were more effective to bring out a particular program if you wanted that. You had your music lined up with your CDs lined up, and you could go from this one to that one on the CD player. And so it was more effective to me. And that to me was the biggest fundamental change.
Going to the computer age was one of the best things for me as a DJ. Instead of having 15 records there, all the songs on the record now transferred to MP3, and it's at the fingertips. Like you could pull the song up in 5 seconds and have it play immediately.
At first, there was mixed reaction from the staff as new technology came on board, but overall, most persons were willing to learn.
We say, oh good, something different, something new, let's work with it, So there was no fear. I think it generated some excitement for a while, but then we just settled down to make it work in the interest of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course in the interest of the station.
It was challenging for us, and then I said, hey, look, we got to move with the times. And went, got the teaching, let it soak in, and just move on. Get better and better all the time.
Well, me as one of the younger ones was excited for the change because I know how tough the wheel-to-wheel could be. But there were some persons like Mr. Bradley and Cons Edwards, they were stuck in their ways. They were okay with the wheel-to-wheel. They were okay with the cassettes. As a matter of fact, Cons had piles. He would come to work with tons of cassettes, tons of records just for his shift, and I just came with my drive.
Like when he fully understood what it's all about and how to operate it, we were, glad for the change, and it make us sound better.
I was hesitant, I was hesitant. I was like, no man, the CD is good and so on. I saw other DJs doing it and so on. The minute I started transferring my CDs to MP3, like, wow, why did I do this long time?
As I said, they have those who set in their ways, right? And they don't want to do it. Yeah, it's like I'm accustomed to using CDs. What happened to the CDs? We need a CD player in here. Well, how come we have a CD player anymore? I mean, I for one, was asking that question as well.
And even now that they are familiar with the technology, the broadcasters still marvel at what can be accomplished and how far the station has come.
How easy it is to get songs to play, how easy it is to control. You may look how this is now, but it's much easier now because everything is a click of a mouse. You go there and get what you want, and you just play.
Being able to be heard anywhere in the world. When I was on the radio earlier in the days, you know, people say hailing up the family in England. I'm like, why? Why are you hailing your family in England? They're not gonna hear you. You know, we on the AM band at the time, and we wouldn't hear when he say his name is maybe Anguilla and Montserrat, because the AM band was a little more far-reaching. Why are you hailing up your auntie and uncle in England? No, you could literally hear them, and they hear you. That for me, the reach for me is the biggest thing.
It's amazing that the cameraman will be over in TV, and the next thing you know, you see the camera turn and it's on me, and I'm like, whoa. I remember we had Totally for Kids one morning, and the guys were over TV, and the children, they just see the camera turning to come to them, and they were like, what is going on? So, you know, and we had to explain to them.
Today, the challenge is no longer just how to broadcast, but how to be heard. The audience hasn't gone away, it's multiplied, fragmented, and moved online. Radio is no longer confined to a signal. It lives on phones, feeds, comments, and conversations that never sleep.
My name is Gavin Bell. I'm the Managing Director here at ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. I've been a part of the Board of Directors for about 3 years now, substantively in this post for a little over a year now. So from January 2025, yeah. ZIZ holds a very significant cultural spot when it comes to its place in the community, and taking on that responsibility and modernizing it in a way that honors that but still gets you involved and interested and future-proof for the next generation is an incredible responsibility. Since we came on as a board, through the help of the government as well as some other entities, we've been able to fully revamp the digital infrastructure for ZIZ. When we came on, there was still a system here that was running Windows 93. And it wasn't a back office in a room somewhere. It was responsible for the broadcast of one of our stations. That's no longer the case. If it's something that we needed to have on a daily use on a daily basis, and it couldn't hold up to industry standard anymore, it had to go. Unfortunately, that was a lot of stuff. So while we could have gone down the road of replacing individual items, the decision was taken very early that a wholesale revision, a wholesale revamping of especially ZIZ radio had to take place. So we had equipment in here that was the better part of 15 to 17 years old. We had tape decks, we had reel-to-reels, we had very, very early stage digital recording equipment and that type of thing, which, sorry to say it, but has advanced by leaps and bounds. So the decision on what would stay and what would go was kind of already made for us. However, that's not to say that we got rid of anything. We still have most of that equipment secured, and at some point we'll put together some sort of museum type display that people can come and see where ZIZ started, where it got to, where it is now. We've completely revamped. We've got a brand new state-of-the-art digital network system that allows us to do quite a bit of things, that allows for, that is the bedrock, the base, the foundation on which a lot of the things that we want to do going forward are built. That was phase one, which led to phase two, which was this beautiful new studio you see behind us here. Not just focusing on the radio side, which traditionally hadn't seen any sort of major improvement since, I want to say we became a corporation, but definitely not something that was overlooked, but just requiring the vision to put it all together and to make it happen. Right now, I think our radio equipment, our radio infrastructure is top of the line. I don't think there's a station in the Caribbean right now that has a better looking or more technically advanced station than we have right now. We're currently using suppliers from Italy who have come in and set up a brand new digital everything, which gives us the potential to do quite a bit of things. So in terms of what's the strongest, I definitely think that's it. I don't think there's anything technically that needs to be reworked. I think for ZIZ going forward, we need to show our listeners, our partners, our community that anything that they can think of, be it a standalone creator, a group of people, or just a challenge that they want to issue to ZIZ, we are to the task and ready to go. In a landscape where people think radio and TVE have served their purpose, you can find ways through technology to show that, no, radio especially is a huge player in the game, especially in St. Kitts. Radio never really took that dive, that huge hit once the proliferation of cell phones and digital media came along. As a matter of fact, radio is still one of the places that has a captive audience on a daily basis. And that's relevance. That's something that needs to be explored. That's something that we can use the technology that we have now to find deeper integrations and push forward. We talked about bulletin board, we talked about different content, the morning show with GQ. It's very much a situation where all the data that we have collected suggests it's not that people don't talk about ZIZ. It's that ZIZ isn't giving them anything to talk about. And one of those reasons for that is that we're not, or we haven't been, reaching them where they are. So we can't sit around and wait for, you know, John or Jill to come home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and jump in their car and that's the only time they interact with us. That's not feasible, that's how you become the fossil and die. No, so we gather that content, we try and package it in a way that we can find different entry points. So TikTok, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, all of those things. And we try and find ways that we can interact with our audience who exists, they do exist on those platforms, and give them the same type of quality content that they come to expect from ZIZ.
But with all developments come gains and losses.
As technology evolved, life became easier on announcers and operators at ZIZ. And the more technology evolved, the easier it becomes. And that, in my view, would induce or reduce the desire for preparation.
One of the major things, I think, it has become more outstanding in the sense that you're able to do your job better. What have we lost? We've lost the old technology. We say bye to it, we've finished with that. And the new technology has replaced it.
Well, what we lost here at ZIZ is that I think we made a mistake by not holding on to some of the real tapes that we had and the information and material on it. Put them, try get them in your system. Put them on a drive or something.
I think everybody who feel they have a computer and the software feel like they're a DJ. It takes more than just playing music to make you a DJ. There's entertainment, but there's also education. You have to be able to educate your listeners, tell your listeners about this artist, where they came from. Not just, so I find a lot of persons just have the software, they know how to sync the music and they play the music, but there's no training. Because they have the internet and the feel, they know it all, but when they really don't.
I think the personal touch, the one-on-one kind of thing has been lost. Yeah, I don't feel close to people like I used to, I think that is one of the things. But that is the loss. But in the gain, we can play more music. People can see us now. You could. It's a lot of things. It's far-reaching.
The tools have changed, the platforms have expanded, but the heart of ZIZ remains the same.
ZIZ is here to serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. I think that some of the changes that I would like to see in ZIZ as a former general manager and somebody who worked there for a number of years is for it to free up, to become more people-oriented.
ZIZ is here to inform the people of St. Kitts and Nevis and the world as to what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis, and play the music of the folks from St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, I feel personally ZIZ is here for educating the masses, entertaining, keeping us informed. When we used to get hurricane, there was no up there for us, you know. There was no stay home, I remember I was living in Matinley when one of the hurricanes struck. The amount of lampposts I had to step over to get to ZIZ, there was no excuse. Because it was our duty to tell the people them what not to do and what to do.
We are the family station, you know, the family station to touch lives. And I think we have done that very well, you know, reaching out to people and letting them know that we care.
I think ZIZ is here to do what he was always here to do. And we summed it up back in my time as to inform and to educate. And we added in the most entertaining way. So ZIZ informs and it educates. And I think it's even more entertaining now.
As long as there are stories to tell, voices to hear, and a community to serve, ZIZ will keep evolving. Because the technology matters, but the connection always comes first.